Good morning. I am Todd,
And I am Joel.
and this is the Verbal Nonsense Podcast, where we talk about strange things that are interesting to us mostly. Sometimes it's not. It's been a rough week, and then last night I started looking for stuff, and it was just like mountains of cool things going on in the world. Incidentally, just like
Mountains.
mountains, just
Oh,
mountains. This is breaking news. I actually literally just found this 10 seconds ago. And unfortunately, I have to read it off my phone because I literally just found it. Anyway, the headline of this, and it literally just happened not even 24 hours ago. Japanese trade minister resigns after being accused of gifting crabs and melons to voters.
what?
Right? Right. Uh, Japan's trade minister. Oh, here you go, Melissa. Ishu Sugimura resigned on Friday, less than 2 months after he was appointed, following accusations of violating the country's election law. He was under pressure to resign after reports accused him of gifting his Tokyo voters expensive food items such as melons, oranges, crabs, and royal jelly between 2006 and 2007, as well as offering, money
That's some
during
shady antics.
some real shady stuff. He's like, I need your vote. I've got this royal jelly. So he's like, I'm not a fan of royal jelly. What else you got? I got crabs. Ooh, I get into some crab legs.
Yeah, yeah.
But apparently he offered somebody 20,000 yen or $184 to
That doesn't sound as impressive in
to a
dollars.
family of one of his supporters. A Japanese custom known as incense money, a monetary condolence gift for families grieving due to a loss. So if it's a Japanese custom to give somebody 100, basically your electric bill, um, how is that bribes?
Context. It's all about context.
Yeah, you're right. He's like, ooh, these people just lost a family dog. I could probably get a vote out of this.
It's like the number, like if you said four, is four a lot? And it's context. $4? That's not a lot. Four murders? That's a lot.
That's a that's a new way of looking at
Context.
things.
It's
Yeah,
context.
it is very, I guess, a bowling handling. The magazine published a photo allegedly showing Sugimura bowing and handing an envelope containing a whole whopping $186 at the funeral. Um, the rest of it's really not that interesting. I just thought it was extremely funny. Oh, okay, there's other things going on too. Apparently he does like to give the money. But anyway, that was fun. I enjoyed that one. But so just if somebody hands you melons or oranges or crabs or royal jelly, ask them what they
Be,
do
sus-
for a living.
be suspicious.
Be very, very suspicious. He may be wanting your vote in the next election.
Well, while we're talking about foreign news,
Hmm.
motorists in southwest England will need to pay special attention when driving through Dorset County next week, where officials are putting a 41-mile detour
Shut up.
around a 65-foot stretch of construction work.
My
That's
God.
that is a super crappy detour.
That's terrible.
65 feet of road, 41-mile detour.
This sounds like Iowa detours. They're in northern Iowa.
Oh,
They'll block like, I don't know, 100 feet of road, but the only other road, especially in northern Iowa where the roads are just straight, which I miss that about California, straight roads. Here in Missouri, we don't have those at all. But there in Iowa, there will be roads that just go on for miles before you come to an intersection. So if there's part of the road blocked, you may end up driving forever. But how did they determine 41 miles? I didn't. I thought the UK
they
used the metric system. That's probably got them confused even more.
Well, no, I mean it was being reported by an American
Yeah.
news site. So
But could you imagine being British and driving on a British road and then there's a sign that says Detour this way, 41 miles, and them just freaking out? How far is that?
now, I mean, I'm sure there are shorter roads, but basically they chose this route because they're roads that can handle the traffic that normal road that they normally take can handle. So,
I get it.
but you know what? 41 miles. I think I'd take one of the smaller roads.
That's aggressive. What do they call their trucks, their package trucks out there? It's something weird. You know what I'm talking about? They
I know
call
what
them
you're talking
something.
about.
They call them something different. I can't remember what they call them though. Oh,
Well, you know,
a lorry. Isn't it a
yeah,
lorry? Okay.
something. I don't know.
Well, that
I'm not gonna
mystery is
swear by that.
solved, gang.
If Todd's wrong, put it in the comments.
Yeah, if Todd's ever wrong, put it in the comments, and I will prove that I was right, no matter how wrong I was.
Nice.
Yeah, I'm too single to be wrong. I'm not single.
I'm just waiting for your girlfriend to run out and murder you.
Yeah, you know, that would make for good content, wouldn't it? Oh,
Put a short
incidentally,
video.
speaking of girlfriend, I was wrong in the Facebook post. We did not have spaghetti, we had lasagna.
Oh, don't worry. She corrected you in a comment.
Well, it looked like
Just
spaghetti contents when she brought the bags in, said I brought dinner.
okay. I thought you were going to incriminate yourself and be like, they looked like spaghetti afterwards.
It was my other girlfriend who made spaghetti. No, that's not the case at all. It was very, very delicious lasagna. I used to hate lasagna growing up because of the cheese. They use like ricotta cheese or cottage cheese or whatever that dry, clumpy cheese is. I like ricotta now. I'm still not into the cottage cheese in lasagna yet.
Okay, until I moved out here, I had never heard of anyone using cottage cheese in lasagna. But
Hey, you know what?
you use what you got to use.
I guess. Oh man, but it only took I don't know. We did it. We did it. She made it while while we were going through stuff last night. It felt like it only took a sec. But it was done before we were done. Man, I found out that a moment, just odd stuff, a moment is actually a legitimate measurement of time that lasts 90 seconds.
Yeah.
So if you're only going to take a moment, you have a lot less time than you think you do.
Or more. I thought a moment was less than that.
Really? Well,
Yeah.
it's not a Jiffy. The Jiffy is actually listed as 1/100th of a second.
That's
So
pretty short.
if it'll take a Jiffy, you're moving pretty quick. If
If
it'll
I
take a
hurry up.
moment, I can. That's that's a little more tolerable. But
So the next time you're at a mechanic and they're like, "We'll have your car fixed in a jiffy,"
you call him a liar and you
immediately.
sue him. You lawyer up so fast. And you say this man broke his verbal contract, it should be free. In fact, he should buy you a new car. But if it only takes a moment, he's still a liar. But no, I hear that more often it'll be a moment or it'll just take a moment. Mostly through customer service. So when I'm on the phone with customer service or tech support or something, I will just start a stopwatch next time. And when they ask me to take that survey, they will get 0 stars.
Or when they say, "It'll take just a minute."
Oh, well, that's a minute. I mean, that's very specific.
Yeah, but they say a minute, and then it's like
3 hours later. You know,
15, 20 minutes, an hour later. Like,
Yeah.
this is a long minute, man.
it is a long minute. I like the hot minute. People were saying that a lot there about 10 years ago. Oh, I'm going to be a minute on that. It's more like a week. You know, I don't know where that came from.
It's like when people say, "Oh man, I haven't heard a song from that artist in a minute," and I'm like,
Yep. You listen
"Where
to
where
them often?
where does this thing come from that I hated?"
I don't know. Speaking of mechanics, though, did you hear about the rats who have learned how to drive cars? Did you see that?
Yeah.
You saw
Yes.
that? Did I just steal one?
Nope.
Okay, good. Because I thought it was pretty interesting. Of course, everything they do with rats has to do with Alzheimer's. So they were seeing what kind of motor skills they could teach these rats to calm them down. It really does. I mean, literally everything you find a rat in a lab,
Sorry, I was
they're
just
trying to cure
enjoying the pun.
they're trying to kill. They're trying to cure Alzheimer's. But yeah, these tiny cars are run by basically a simple circuit electric motor, and they've taught these rats how to drive them, and apparently it's more calming. I don't. It has the opposite effect on humans. I don't understand why this works. You know, people get into a
Well,
car and it's just road rage.
yeah, you put rats in a traffic situation. We'll see what happens about with their calming effect.
I think they have put them in.
You put you put them in the Boston traffic during a Red Sox game, and we'll talk.
Oh my god. Yeah. Speaking of baseball, have you seen this World Series going on lately?
No.
All I know is it's the Astros and the Nationals. So who cares?
Exactly.
You know, I'm a fan. I'm a baseball fan, but when I saw who was playing, I was like, I'm just gonna sit this one out.
As much as I give people at work hell, it's mostly joking. I haven't seriously watched sports since like the 90s.
Yeah.
I lost interest at some point in my life and just never went back.
It was probably all the baseball strikes and Michael Jordan retiring, then coming back and sucking, and then retiring again. You know, there was a lot of bad stuff going on in the 90s as far as
And
sports go.
it was mostly all the strikes. Like, we need more money.
Yeah, the baseball strike really
Just about
upset me
every
as a kid.
sport had a
Oh,
major strike in the 90s.
Yeah.
Even hockey had a strike. Now, hockey, I mean, those dudes take a lot of physical damage, and they don't get paid nearly as much as the other sports. But at
No,
the
they
same
don't.
time, they're like, we need lots of money.
They also party a lot harder
I don't
than
know.
any other sport. So when they start talking about physical pain, I think it's probably because they're just too hungover to really be playing.
Oh, my goodness.
Oh man, that reminds me. You know who Dustin Johnson is?
Nope.
PGA golfer. He's
Oh,
married. You mentioned
that'd be
hockey.
great.
I thought of Wayne Gretzky. I thought of Wayne Gretzky's daughter, and who's married to Dustin Johnson, PGA golfer. I believe it's 4 or 5 times he's tested positive for cocaine.
I don't know
Speaking
why.
of people who like to party hard.
Them golfers, man.
Well, I mean Tiger Woods, you know, he used to
Yeah.
knock him.
He was doing a different kind of fun.
Yeah, he was making 3 par before ever stepping on the first tee.
Yeah, he was.
You know.
He was shooting a different kind of hole.
Yeah, right. Oh man. Well, enough of that. I'm just
Shenanigans.
all over the place this morning, really. You
Alright.
were talking about a more interesting story that you actually had picked out for today. Did you want to talk about that yet?
Sure. Let's talk about that. And I'm gonna go ahead and thank Dennis for bringing this one to my attention.
Cool beans, Dennis.
And he brought this one up to me because part of it takes place in our area. This is about the Ma Barker gang. Now,
Give us a smooth rundown on the Mara Barker gang.
all right. Well, it actually comprised mainly of let's see, was it? I lost my notes.
Oh
All
no.
right. Uh, Fred Barker and Alvin Carpet. That's who the main two were.
That was an
But
incredibly easy name to be butchering.
Arthur.
I mean, at least when I butcher names, it's hard.
I wasn't butchering. I was just looking for them. Fred
Oh.
Barker and Alvin Carpet.
Okay.
All right. So they were the core of the gang, as well as Arthur Barker. Now, Mark Barker gets a lot of credit for being the mastermind, but well, I'll get to that part in a bit. But anyway, let's see. From 1928 to 1931, Ma Barker was living in poverty in a dirt floor shack. By 1930, she was living with a jobless man named Arthur W. Dunlop. Uh, she is described as his wife on the 1930 census of Tulsa, Oklahoma.
Hmm.
In 1931, her son Fred was released from jail, and he joined former prison mate Alvin Karpis to form the Barker Karpis gang.
Hmm.
After a series of robberies, Fred and Karpis killed a Sheriff C. Roy Kelly in West Plains, Missouri,
Oh really?
on December 19th, 1931. An act that forced them to flee the territory. Let's see. And then Ma and Dunlop traveled with them using various false names during their crime career. A wanted poster issued at this time offered a $100 reward for the capture of old lady Ari Barker
Hmm.
as an accomplice. After this, she was usually known to gang members as Kate. Arthur was released from prison in 1932 and joined Fred and Karpis. Like I said, they were the core members of the gang, and then they were usually supplemented by other criminal associates. They moved to Chicago, but decided to leave because Karpis did not want to work for Al Capone.
Oh, so they actually basically there was a merger in Chicago.
No, it doesn't say there was a merger. It's just
They just ended up having they
they went
just
to Chicago. Usually, if other criminal enterprises moved into Chicago, Al Capone would be like, "Listen, either you're working for me, or you're not." And
he just
he
wanted
didn't
his
like
peace.
competition. Al
Like,
Capone did not like competition.
that's what I learned from watching Boardwalk Empire.
Um,
That's where I get all my American history is through HBO.
Racketeer Jack Pfeiffer suggested they move to St. Paul, Minnesota, which had a reputation at the time as a haven for wanted criminals.
I think it still is, considering all the ties to terrorism some of the populace has there in St. Paul these days.
They let's see, their most infamous crimes were committed after the move to St. Paul, during their residency in a string of rented houses. The gang operated under the protection of St. Paul's police chief Thomas Big Tom Brown, and they went from being bank robbers to kidnappers under his guidance.
What?
So now we have a corrupt police officer or police chief involved. Ma Barker's common law husband, Arthur Dunlop, was said to be loose-lipped when drunk, and he was not trusted by members of the gang. Karpis described him as a pain in the ass, and while at one hideout, a resident identified the gang from photographs in True Detective magazine and told the police, but Chief Brown tipped them off and they escaped.
Wow.
The gang apparently believed that Dunlop's loose lips had given them away, and they murdered him while traveling. His naked body was found near Webster, Wisconsin, with a single bullet wound to the head.
You can't kill him. That's your common law stepdad.
Right.
Now, common law, that's like you're with somebody long enough, they're just like, you're stuck with them. Is that how that works?
Yeah, so certain states, a lot of them don't use the common law anymore, but back then, if you lived with someone for a certain amount of years, you became considered married.
He's yours now.
Yep. Let's see.
I
Now,
wonder if they had it marked on the calendar. It's just like, oh man, I gotta move out in like 2 days.
I don't want married to this person. I'm out.
They're like, but we were supposed to go look at the monkeys at the zoo. There's a new zoo exhibit. I was like, look, priorities. You knew this was coming. You had 7 years to think about it.
Let's see. The gang relocated to Menominee, Wisconsin. I probably butchered that.
Menominee.
Menominee.
Yeah.
And Fred Barker hid Ma in a variety of hotels and hideouts during their stay there. The purpose was to keep her from learning much about the gang's crimes, as well as to separate her from their girlfriends with whom she did not get along.
Why?
Yeah. The FBI later claimed that she would try to break up any relationships so that the other women in the gang did their best to avoid her. By 1933, most of the gang were back in St. Paul, where they carried out 2 kidnappings of wealthy businessmen. They obtained $100,000 in ransom by abducting William Ham, then arranged the kidnapping of Edward Bremer, which netted them another $200,000. Back in 1930, that was a ton of money.
That's some Rockefeller money.
The FBI first connected the gang to the William Ham kidnapping by using the method of latent fingerprint identification.
Ooh, fancy. They broke out the big guns on these guys.
The gang decided to leave St. Paul with the FBI on the case and without Tom Brown supplying information. They moved to the Chicago area, so they went back there, renting apartments from Ma while they tried to launder the ransom. Now, FBI agents discovered the hideout of Barker and her son Fred after Arthur was arrested in Chicago on January 8th, 1935. A map found in his possession indicated the other gang members were in Ocklawaha, Florida. Why? I had never heard of Ocklawaha.
I don't think anybody has.
I soon located the house.
Doesn't exactly sound like a bustling metropolis.
They probably picked it for a reason.
Sounds like a good place to get eaten by alligators.
Probably.
Yeah.
The FBI soon located the house where the gang was staying after identifying references to a local alligator named Gator Joe, mentioned in a letter sent to Doc.
There it is. Called it.
They had rented the property under the pseudonym Blackbird, claiming to be a mother and sons wanting to vacation in a country retreat.
That sounds pretty hot.
The agents surrounded the house on the morning of January 16th, 1935. The FBI were not aware that Karpus and the other gang members had left 3 days before, leaving only Fred and Ma in the house.
Heck yeah, they were getting rid of a problem.
Yeah, they were attempting to anyway. Now, remind you, this is when the FBI
when they first started rocking and rolling. Yeah, this is. Oh, boy, that would have been a good joke if I was faster with it.
Now, the agents ordered them to surrender, but Fred opened fire. Both he and his mother were killed by the federal agents after an intense, hours-long shootout.
Yeah, I got rid of them.
There was only 2 people in that house. Now, allegedly, many local people came to watch the events unfolding, even holding picnics during the gunfire.
Heck yeah.
Gunfire from the house finally stopped. Now, here's the thing that get me. The FBI ordered the local estate handyman, Willie Woodbury, to enter the house wearing a bulletproof vest. They ordered a civilian to go into the house instead of going in themselves. What kind of shenanigans is that?
Nah, bro.
I know we're federal officers, but yeah, you go in there.
Yeah, it's like, hey, Joel, I need you to get in here real quick. Just go in there and talk him down, okay? What?
So...
What'd you say, Chief? You want that dude to go in there? Are you serious? Oh, we'll give him a bulletproof vest. Oh, okay.
Yeah. So Willie Woodbury reported that there was no one inside alive. Both bodies were found in the same front bedroom. Fred's body was riddled with bullets, but Ma appeared to have died from a single bullet wound. According to the FBI,
what a weakling.
A Tommy gun was found lying in her hands. Other sources say that it was not in Ma's hands. It was actually lying on the floor between the bodies of Ma and Fred.
So she might have been an innocent bystander. Is that what they're trying to say with this gun placement?
Pretty much. Well,
She was just
uh,
there. It wasn't her fault.
their bodies were put on public display and then stored unclaimed until
That is
1st, 1935,
disgusting.
when relatives had been buried. It is. Now, the controversy is the popular image is that Ma was the gang's leader and this
Hmm.
criminal mastermind, often portrayed in such films as Ma Barker's Killer Brood, Bloody Mama, and Public Enemy. Um,
Whoa,
however,
Public
this is
Enemy was.
Public Enemies, 1996.
Yeah, I watched that
Yeah.
with Johnny Depp, I believe, was in that one.
That was about the Ma Barker gang.
I don't remember it being like that, but of course, I don't think I've seen it since '96.
However, this is widely regarded as by historians as fictitious.
Well, yeah, it
Maybe,
was a movie.
yeah. Well, no, about her being the mastermind. um, and they've been skeptical that she participated in the shootout in which she died.
She might have just been reloading guns. Either way,
Even Karpus suggested that the story was encouraged by J. Edgar Hoover and his fledgling FBI
hmm
to justify his agents killing an old woman.
who played who
That's
played
Hoover.
Hoover in Untouchables?
I don't remember that. I haven't watched Untouchable since it first came out.
Okay,
I
that's the
slept
name I
a
was
lot.
trying to come up with earlier.
Google away, my friend.
No, I don't have time for that.
Um,
My theory on
a-
Google doesn't support that kind of actions.
After her death, Hoover claimed that Ma Barker was the most vicious, dangerous, and resourceful criminal brain of the last decade.
Yeah,
He
she's
also claimed that she enjoyed the lifestyle that was the fruit of her son's crimes and supposedly had a string of lovers. Um, Now,
gross.
Ma Barker's children were murderers, and their Barker Karpus gang committed a spree of robberies, kidnappings, and other crimes between 1931 and 35. But there's no conclusive proof that Ma was their leader.
All
Um,
four
she knew
years.
she knew of their activities and even helped them before they committed their crimes. And that made her an accomplice, but there's no evidence that she was ever involved in the actual crimes.
It happens.
According to several people who knew the gang, they would actually send her to the movie theaters while they were committing their crimes.
Why don't you go watch a movie, Ma? We're just gonna hang out at the house.
We're gonna go for a beer.
Yeah. Oh, I've got to do that thing later, but I need to take. We're just gonna go to bed. Go watch a moving picture show, Ma.
And then she comes back. You guys robbed a bank again? Sorry.
Yeah, we we got bored. Figured we'd go ahead and just do this. I mean, somebody has to pay for all these movies you go and see.
Yeah.
My goodness.
But there was trying to basically someone who followed the story said the most ridiculous story of this is that Ma Barker was the mastermind behind the gang. She wasn't the leader of criminals or even a criminal herself. There is not one police photograph of her or set of fingerprints taken while she was alive. She knew they were criminals, but her participation in their careers was limited to one function. When they traveled together, they moved as a mother and her sons. That's it. That's she helped with their cover, and that's.
But she also helped in a shootout.
Um,
I mean, I think that comment there is just completely dismissing the fact that if she wasn't a criminal, she would have not have been there. She would have encouraged her son to give up and say,
no, she was.
"Do the
She
thing."
was.
But no, she was there.
She
Was
knew what they
fighting
were
back.
up to. She was
Yeah.
at least a.
No, she was involved.
But I don't think she was the.
I don't. No, probably not.
No.
Not if she was trying to break them up out of their relationships. I mean, you'd want these dudes to be as happy and calm as possible.
Now, there was a notorious bank robber back then named Harvey Bailey who knew
Yeah.
the Barkers well.
Oh, was he?
In his autobiography, he said, "Ma Barker couldn't plan breakfast, let alone a criminal enterprise."
Yeah,
He said, what was it?
Ma
The
Barker.
real, he said, the real force behind the gang was the corrupt St. Paul law enforcement. He said under chief Tom Brown, before they met him, the gang were nothing more than a band of hillbilly burglars who would
Really?
have been captured or killed long before becoming nationally notorious.
Well, that's
Had the
interesting.
Barker gang never come under Brown's protection, Bob Barker might have died lonesome in the Ozarks and impoverished a widow.
Oh, so things aren't much different 80 years ago as they are today.
So basically, this guy is suggesting that with Chief, these guys would have never become notorious at all.
Okay.
Yeah. So
That actually makes sense because, everybody needs a mentor.
indeed.
Oh, man. You got anything more to add to that? I honestly, apart from watching Public Enemy 20 years ago, I don't I don't know much about the gang. I like, I like stuff like that, but I don't actively just run out and look for it. So, thank you, Dennis, for bringing
Yeah.
that to our attention. That's a pretty
And I
good
thought it
one.
was interesting because they shot a sheriff in West Plains. So I was like, what?
Did they shoot the deputy?
Apparently, they only killed the.
That's good.
I shot the
Yeah,
sheriff.
okay. I wasn't gonna sing it.
Oh, come on.
No, I'm
No.
not. You ever heard of ABS virus?
No.
It's a syndrome actually. It's
ABS.
ABS. Auto-Brewery syndrome. Have you ever heard about
No.
Auto-Brewery syndrome? I just found out about this last night. Tasha knew all about it. Um, Yeast, of course, we can have different. There's apparently dozens of different forms of yeast infections that human beings can contract. The more common ones include yeast infections.
Okay.
Anyway,
Yeah,
uh,
let's keep going.
I hit a speed bump because I was just like, that's a topic I don't really want to get into. But anyway, auto brewery syndrome is essentially a fungus that grows in your lungs from the yeast that they use to make beer with. It could actually grow in your body, and of course, it triggers when you eat high carbohydrate meals like pizza or sugary sodas, and basically it'll get you drunk. The most common way of actually getting ABS is through antibiotics. So if you want to enjoy this, it's pretty rough, but
Yeah, that doesn't sound
that's how it
enjoyable.
activates. I found this because there's a story about a man, and I did not write his name down, but he was an Ohio man who has been pulled over for drunk driving many times, has a lot of falls due to being drunk, and each time he was hauled off to jail, he insists that he wasn't drunk. Nobody believed him but his mother, um, who encouraged him to go seek some help. That's when he was first diagnosed with auto-brewery disease.
Huh.
They put him on antifungals. That's how apparently you get rid of them. Um, and but it didn't work. That was back in 2014. 2015, he decided to seek other forms of
Assistance.
yeah, basically. But Alcoholics Anonymous and things of that nature were not what he was looking for. But the police continued to arrest him, drunk driving, things of that nature. Um,
Hmm.
it's he was pulled over. Now it's interesting because you wouldn't think that um, a fungus in your body would actually affect some things, but he would literally eat pizza or some. I'm using pizza as an example because that's the example that was given most often, or drink soda or something like that, and go drive and get pulled over. This man blew a point .4 on a regular occasion. Blood alcohol test. Yeah, the breathalyzer test. Point .4 is very aggressive. Of course, .08 is technically drunk. So I'm not going to math it out, but I think that's 6 times, 5 times higher than the legal limit, something like that. I don't know. But yeah, that's aggressive. But he finally 2017, 2018, somewhere in there, finally got it under control after falling and having a contusion. He fell from a sober drunk, staggered, fell over. He was rushed to the hospital, and they put him under intense care to get rid of it. Doctors are actually starting to take this a little more seriously, because apparently there are a lot of drunk driving cases every year that people are like, but I wasn't drinking. So what may sound like a lie and might be a funny episode on cops may actually be someone's disease. So,
Some sort of fungal virus.
when I first started reading it, I was just like, that would make life cheaper. I was like, wow, it's like,
Sounds like more of a pain in the ass.
it really does. I mean, you could eat like low carb diet through the week, and then on the weekend, you're just like, woo, I'm gonna eat this loaf of bread and just party down. You're at a get together or barbecue, and you're just standing there, just spoonfuls of sugar.
Hey Todd, you want to go see a movie? Nah, dude. I gotta stay home.
Do what? You just cut out.
Hey Todd, you want to go out see a movie? Nah, I've been eating bread. Stay home.
Okay, I guess your mic just doesn't like the word bread,
Oh,
but
bread.
it's
Bread.
okay. We got it from there. But yeah, that's all I really got about ABS. If you or a loved one has ABS, you should.
Get it treated. Bread.
Well, you stick to. I bet what this man's problem was the first time he got treatment was he didn't stick to the diet, and
Oh, yeah.
the fungus would grow. Because when he was getting a good response from the medication, and then he would go and eat, I don't know, a handful of crackers or something, and it would just have to start over. But it's weird. It is just a fungus infection in your body that causes it. Upon looking at this, there's actually a whole line of funguses, which fungi, or plants that their natural habitat is the human body, and can't grow outside of human beings. I just don't know how we contract these things. But you too can have a garden living in you.
You too can have a microbrewery in your.
That would be amazing. Do you think he would legitimately have a beer gut?
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, I'm done with that.
Good.
But ABS Awareness Month. Drink a
Yeah.
beer for ABS.
Or at least Awareness Week. I don't know. Who knows what we'll talk about next week?
I'd wear that T-shirt.
All right. I've
Yeah.
got a Iowa family's basement is soaked with 5 inches of animal blood.
Whoa, what?
Nick Lestina found 2 weeks ago when he discovered 5 inches of blood, fat, and other animal tissue flooding his family's basement
No,
in Bagley, Iowa,
that house is haunted.
which is about 45 miles northwest of Des Moines. It is not haunted. He hasn't been able to clean it up because it's still seeping in.
From what?
The waste is coming from a neighboring amusement where blood and tissue from slaughtered animals was washed down a drain. Officials say a clog or a break in the pipe sent the waste into Lestina's basement through a floor drain.
That is rough.
A state environmental specialist traced the waste to Dahl's Custom Meat Locker and says the company is now pumping it into a large tank.
Oh, yeah. So
So let's
I
say a
guess
family has temporarily moved in with a relative.
they were just pumping it down the drain, and that drain was seeping into these people's houses, homes.
Yeah, into his basement.
That's
That's disgusting.
well, what's even more disgusting is you just got all this blood and animal fat that these people are just like, out of sight, out of mind. It's not going anywhere.
Down the drain.
Down the drain, just down the drain.
You know,
That is if I came home, I would just burn the house down.
just burn it.
Yeah. Yeah, I had
I'd be suing somebody.
no. When I worked on the river, I was gone for like 10 weeks one time. And when I came home, apparently I was gone for so long that I had not paid my electric bill, and I guess enough time went by that they just shut it off. And so when I came home that hot summer night, my fridge had been spoiling there for a couple weeks. And I walked in and I immediately walked back out and said, fuck. I said, yeah, and said, forget that. I just wanted to burn the place down. It took forever to get the smell out. I was just, and it was messed up because when I went to the power company, when I first moved in, I went to the power company. I was just like, do you guys have auto pay? Because I'm gone for, month or two, sometimes at a time. I don't want to pay my bill late. And they're just like, no, we don't have that. Looked me dead in my eyes and said, no, we do not have auto pay. So when this scenario came around about a year and a half later, I went in to go get my power reconnected. And they said, well, why don't you have auto pay set up?
Oh.
I would go to their competitors, but there aren't any.
No, not around here.
No. Well, there's just a constant monopoly on power. Look at PG&E in California right now. It's just shutting off people's power whenever, willy-nilly. There's a fire. Let's shut the power off. These people are still having to pay their connection fees and everything else as if their power is just constant and steady and everything's great. There's rolling blackouts, but they're just like, oh, I'm just going to get power somewhere else. No, you're not.
No.
It's disgusting. But yeah, no, they were just like, hey, you should just have auto pay. And I was like, oh, is this a new thing? Well, of course not. They treated me like I was stupid. And I said, a year and a half ago, you guys said, no, you don't have auto pay. Did you not have auto pay a year and a half ago? And they're like, no. And I was like, so why am I paying a $50 reconnection fee if, I still paid it? Sometimes you just need to gripe. It makes no change. It doesn't matter. They don't care. They're just like, yeah, whatever, dude. If you don't want power, don't worry about it. But if you want power, you're coming through us. I felt very strong-armed.
Did you?
Not really. Just for the sake of the story, yes, I did. I felt like it was a scam so they can get an extra $50 out of me. I'm guessing someone's daughter needed a new pair of shoes. Like, we're going to get it from that Todd guy. Let's pull the plug on that one. Anyway. Oh boy. What do we got going on here?
This is a few weeks back. Someone was having incursion and they opened their hood. Apparently squirrels storing walnuts and grass, and they're making a nest with a storage of food.
Okay.
The owners had to pick out over 200 walnuts.
It's a pretty good haul.
Yeah.
Is it walnut collecting season?
Apparently, the squirrels are getting ready for the winter.
Yeah. That's interesting. Where's that at? Pennsylvania.
Yep.
Okay. Huh. When I, excuse me. When I, I worked at a couple different oil change places there in Texas when I lived there. We would frequently come across things of that nature, little nests and stuff built in people's cars, but it was never that bad. It was never like, we have all this real estate, we're just going to take it all up. You know, when somebody buys 20 acres and put a house on it, they don't build a 20-acre house. It's just like a small. But apparently those squirrels wanted a 20-acre house.
Yeah, apparently the woman who was driving it noticed that something was smelled like it was burning and it was making a weird sound. So,
I hope to God it wasn't a squirrel.
no, it was
It was just the
engine
nest, yeah.
and neatly packed grass. Yeah.
Yeah, okay. I don't know what's making that weird sound. You know, squirrel cooking alive in her car after, you know, a 4 hour trip, yeah.
Oh,
It's making a weird noise, too. Sounds like a squirrel dying.
There's a pissed off squirrel somewhere. His stash disappeared.
No kidding. That's a rough stash.
Dude spent all that time squirreling away
No
400
kidding.
walnuts or 200, whatever it was, and all that grass.
That's a lot
And then
of.
he comes back and he's like, "What?
Where'd he go?
Robbed. I've been robbed. Call the police."
Call the police. I wasn't really going to talk about it, but
Something I inspired you.
yeah, well, we talked about it earlier, and I decided I was probably going to skip it because there's too many. But now I have to, you know.
You have to.
Yeah, because you talked about calling the police of stolen stashes. There was a man who called 911. Actually, quite a few people called 911 about stolen drugs in the last week. As I was looking,
Stole my weed.
yeah, it was just all people talking about stolen weed. There was one dude in Ohio who was just like, "Oh, my buddy stole my weed. You need to come get him." And they're like, "Weed's illegal in Ohio." And he goes, "No, it was less than 100 grams. That's legal for recreational use." And they're like, "No, sir, it's not. This is on." He called the police station about it. He goes, "Oh," and insisted that less than 100 grams was legal for recreational use in the state of Ohio. Ohio insists that it's not. And he said that, this wasn't the buddy who stole the weed. This was the police came and stole his weed. They didn't. He's like, "Well, if they didn't arrest me and they didn't give me a fine, then that's theft. And they should return it." I was like, "Sounds more like they cut you a break, you stoner." I don't know. The guy insisted that everybody else was stupid. He was the smartest man alive because he knows the law more than the police do. I'm not saying that the police don't make mistakes, but when it comes to what's legal as far as marijuana goes, never mind. That doesn't even work either, because I know in Colorado when they legalized weed, there were still being like major busts from marijuana there in Colorado. I think it was like even 8 months after it was legalized, there were still people's grow farms getting burned to the ground and stuff. The police are like, "Oh, we got a really good one here," and they're like, "No, he can grow that now." By the way, Officer Barney. But the one I was actually talking about was in California. My uncle brought this to my attention. This is unfolding over the course of the last couple days. Dude calls 911, says a bunch of his plants are being stolen, which also reminds me that in the state of Florida, there was a man who called 911 about his marijuana being stolen about 20 times, to the point where they had to call him back and say, "Hey, look, we don't care about your weed.
Stop calling us."
Stop calling us." That happened last Sunday. But they literally had to call him back. They went to his home and said, "Please quit calling 911 about your $20 of stolen weed." Literally talking to me. He said he spent $20 on it. Somebody owes him money or owes him weed. And they say that weed doesn't affect you. Now, mind you, all of these people that I'm about to talk about haven't been smoking weed because their weed is gone. Their weed's been stolen. These people are calling sober. It's not like they smoked some because it's gone. They're like, "Oh, my weed's stolen. What do I do?" These people are panicking enough to call the authorities about it. In the majority of the states, it's illegal to have it. You guys are stupid. But anyway, never mind about Florida man. California man called 911 and said that he had some plants being stolen. So the two police officers show up at his home. Speaking of homes, also this week in California,
Way to jump and sidetrack.
115 plus and still counting homes are being searched, seized, and repossessed for being marijuana farms. Floor to ceiling, every nook and cranny, packed, jammed with pot plants. Now, of course, it's legal to have this stuff in California these days. However, these homes are owned by the Triad in China. And all the money and proceeds that have been collected from these homes are being wired to the Triad in China. So far, there is no arrest made on the actual home owners, which believe that the homes have been purchased legally and that these immigrants, Chinese immigrants, have been sent here to buy these houses and to grow this weed by force by the Triad.
I don't doubt that one bit.
They're still finding more homes. They're still finding more, essentially slaves here in America that have been forced by the Triad to come over here and grow illegal marijuana. The weed is being shipped off, I think, back to China, possibly, maybe somewhere else. I have no idea. Regardless, they're growing illegal weed in a legal state. But anyway, going back to the original story. So the police show up at this man's home in El Dorado, California, where they did come up onto two gentlemen harvesting plants who immediately opened fire, killing one of the police officers, unfortunately, and wounding the other. I believe there was 2 arrests. There's a third man that's still missing. There was, there was 2 arrests. One of them was the homeowner. One of them was the one of the harvesters. One of them got away, and there's possibly a third accomplice somewhere. They're not 100% sure. But upon investigating, they realized that the homeowner had actually made a deal with the 2 guys and decided to double-cross them by calling the police and saying that they were thieving from him. It turns out that these two men were members of the Mexican cartel, a Mexican cartel, and
what Mexican cartel in California?
What, growing weed? It's unheard of. We legalized it to get rid of crime. Basically, this guy was trying to steal from the Mexican cartel. I wish him luck in California prison system.
Yeah, I don't see him lasting very long.
Yeah.
I decided to cross the cartel.
Yeah, he's just like, I'm going to rent him this place to grow weed, and then I'm going to steal it from him.
When was his story posted?
3 days ago.
Yeah,
4 days ago. Huh?
I give by the end of the week that he dies in a jail.
Yeah, he might. Basically, he's there's a couple of interesting things that I read about this story that says a lot about California. These the 2 guys are Mexican nationals, but apparently under state law they are not allowed to find out whether they are here illegally or not. California state law, I guess, states that you're no longer allowed to check for any legal documents or something of whether they're Americans or have a visa or a green card or anything. I guess it's a safe state. I don't know. But, so they don't know whether these guys are illegal immigrants or not. But they can't find out either. So there it is. But they apparently have strong cartel ties, so I'm going to flip a coin on that one and say definitely not. They are here 100% legal. Since we're just flipping coins on these things now.
That'll very quickly become a federal case, and they'll be able to...
Yeah, they'll be able to do that then, but...
Yeah.
How stupid is that? If they were allowed to ask, it'd be a lot easier to figure out what agency needs to take care of this.
Yep.
Rather than, we don't know what to do. That's how families end up getting separated and put into tents. Yeah, shots fired. Okay.
Shots fired.
Find out who these people are, get them to where they need to be. That's how you take care of things. as quickly and as efficiently as possible. You don't throw your hands in the air because you don't know where to put the paperwork. But anyway, the homeowner is he's an accomplice now to apparently now murder. I'm sure they're going to throw in their false whatever. What is that
False
called?
report.
Yeah, I don't know. They don't know.
Filing a false report.
I'm trying to use the police as an accessory to burglary. Speaking of burglary, this is a quick one. There was a dude there in Kentucky who was they found him in a house, and anyway, the homeowner woke up. There was a man in their house. They called the police. The police showed up and said, "Hey, look, just get out of there." They found out that he was just there eating a mayonnaise sandwich. He left a big mess pocket change in his wallet, which had his ID. So even though the police were there, actually the police weren't there. They actually called him. They called the home. They said, "Hey, can we talk to you?" And he's like, "Yeah, man, what's up? What are you doing?" And they're like, "Well, we're the police and we'd like you to get out of there." He goes, "Well, I got to eat this mayonnaise sandwich." So anyway, he left a huge mess. He drank some coffee and he left all his change in his wallet. So the police will have an arrest soon, I'm sure. But he's going to get charged with burglary. I guess.
Well, he left some money.
He ate a sandwich, a mayonnaise sandwich. You know how expensive mayonnaise is getting now? It's ridiculous. I love mayonnaise on pretty much everything, but I'm very picky about it. Hillman's is by far the best mayonnaise there is. After
Product plug. I said product plug.
Oh yeah, yes. I would gladly sponsor Hillman's if they wanted me to do a show covering my face with mayonnaise. I'd do it. It wouldn't bother me a bit. Stuff's delicious.
Smother it all over your beard.
Heck yeah. So I wouldn't do that. Anyway, we can move on from that. That's all I got on that.
I'm done.
On the California story. I'll actually save. No, I'll just post that story on Facebook. I'm thinking, I don't know about you, but I'm thinking about all the stories that I skip on that I found were interesting. I'm thinking about just posting them on our fan page. What do you think? Skip stories, just a dump for people who might find them interesting.
Sure.
Yeah, I might do that. There's one about a Chinese man who hires a hitman to go kill a business competitor. And 6 hitmen later, he finally gets arrested. Basically, he gives this hitman like 2 million yen, which I guess is probably like, not yen. What do the Chinese use? Whatever the Chinese, China bucks. He gives this guy 2 milli Chinese bucks, and that hitman hires a different hitman to do it, who hires a different hitman to do it, who hires a different hitman to do it, who hires another one. So anyway, and then that dude was just like, "I'm getting gypped on this deal." He calls the guy and is like, "Hey, I got hired to kill you, but why don't we just fake your death, and that's cool, right? And I at least get paid." The guy goes along with it and then calls the police, and now all 6 hitmen plus the businessman who hired to do the killing are now in prison. It was a pretty good story, I thought, but I'm not going to get too deep into it. There's quite a few of them. But yeah, I'm pretty much done for the day too.
Alrighty.
I feel it was pretty solid. The Maw gang, I thought that was pretty cool.
Yeah. I enjoyed it.
Yeah, we ended it, but we don't know how to end it.
Thank you for watching the Nonverbal Podcast.
That's exactly how we do it, the Nonverbal Podcast. You did it this time. That's always me, man.
Woo!
verbal nonsense podcast. I'm actually thinking about just. Yep, there it is. That was the non-verbal podcast outro.
All right, awesome.
Thanks again for watching. If you have any questions or comments, please leave them in the comments section or go to our Facebook page. That's also a popular source of comments.
I was saying, if you enjoyed the video, please like, subscribe.
Yeah, and share it with your friends.
Yeah, that too.
Yeah,
Friends,
or people you don't like. If you hated it, share it with people you don't like. It's like, oh man, these guys are garbage. Good God. I want to send it to this guy. He sounds like he needs a little more garbage in his life.
He might.
Yeah.
Enjoy or just like this.
Probably not.
I hope we're not those people that they send the people that like.
Yeah, they're like, look at these two jerkwads. Yeah. Anyway.
All right.
Yep. Take it easy.